The Romanian Ranger. Chapter 1. A Day in the Life of Alexandru. The morning mist hung low over the vast Romanian forest, casting a mystical veil over its ancient trees. In this remote corner of the country, time seemed to stand still while nature carried on with her eternal dance. Alexandru stirred from his slumber, awakening to another day alone within these towering woods. He was an old-fashioned Romanian forest ranger, dedicated to preserving and protecting the land he had grown to love over decades. His post, nestled deep in the heart of this untamed wilderness, served as a humble base for him to monitor wildlife behavior, a task that seemed increasingly peculiar given the unusual occurrences early this year. With methodical precision, Alexandru began his day by checking the various traps set up around the perimeter of his small clearing. The data he collected was crucial in understanding why animals had started acting so strangely during these past few weeks, straying from their usual patterns and migrating at odd hours. Today's findings were unremarkable. A couple of snapped branches, some faint paw prints that could belong to any number of creatures. Once his morning duties were complete, Alexandru retreated into the modest cabin he called home for most of the year. It was simple but sufficient, a place where he could rest and plan out each day's tasks with clarity. As he sat down at a small wooden table, pushing aside some papers that needed attention later, his gaze fell upon an old poster taped to the wall. It depicted a classically beautiful pop rock singer of the 1990s, the alluring Lorraine Dragan, staring back at him, a piece of culture from another time and place. Someone before Alexandru had left it here as a peculiar memento. He found some comfort in its presence. Lorraine, he murmured to himself with a small smile, recalling how she used to play on the radio during his drives through the forest years ago. He continued his work for the rest of the day, recording observations, sketching out maps, and sending off data packets via satellite communication when there was signal. As dusk approached, casting long shadows across the clearing, Alexandru stepped outside into the crisp evening air to watch as nature transitioned from day to night. The forest seemed alive with whispers, a symphony of crickets, rustling leaves, and distant calls that blended together in a melody only this place could produce. He felt at home here, even when solitude stretched for days on end. As he turned back towards the cabin, thoughts began drifting toward tomorrow's tasks. Another day to unravel the mystery behind these curious animal behaviors. But then his attention returned once more to Lorraine Dragan's poster hanging in that one corner of his humble abode. In this part of Romania, the world was deprived of much of the technology and the music of 1990s. Alexandru found solace in this poster, a piece of pop culture, a reminder that he is living a life away from civilization, a life lived at a slower pace. He allowed himself a moment to reflect on how much things had changed since taking on the life of a Romanian forest ranger. Before turning back into his cabin for another night alone among the whispering trees, "Good night, Lorraine," he whispered with gratitude and closed his eyes, ready once again to face whatever mysteries the days ahead would bring in this vast Romanian forest of his stewardship. Chapter 2. An Unexpected Encounter. The sun had long since set, painting the sky with hues of orange and purple as it dipped below the horizon. Alexandru sat alone inside his cabin, enjoying a simple meal after another day spent observing the forest's peculiar inhabitants. His routine was interrupted when he heard a knock at the door, a sound so rare out here that his curiosity piqued immediately. He approached the entrance with caution but also with an open heart. Lost campers or hikers were not uncommon in these woods, and helping them was part of his duty as a ranger. He prepared himself for a friendly exchange, ready to offer assistance and perhaps some hot tea. As he opened the door, anticipation turned quickly into shock at what, or rather who, stood before him. There under the fading light was Lorraine Dragan herself, her iconic 1990s style intact, the vibrant clothing, the confident stance. It was as if time, space, and reality had warped and brought a piece of a fantasy right to this present moment. For a few moments, Alexandru's mind struggled to catch up with reality. He blinked several times, hoping that the image before him would change or dissipate like some mirage in the desert heat. But no, it didn't. Lorraine was real and here, standing on his porch as if she had just popped by for a visit. "Can I help you?" Alexandru managed to say after what felt like an eternity of silence between them, a question that seemed trivial given her sudden appearance but necessary nonetheless. Lorraine's response came unexpectedly. "I'm not from around here," she said with a calmness that belied the strangeness of the situation, "and I've found myself in quite the predicament." Alexandru listened intently as Lorraine explained how she was an alien who had been sent to Earth for research purposes but now needed help getting back home. The absurdity of her story didn't escape him. It sounded like a tale pulled straight from one of his favorite science fiction novels. "I don't want to scare you," she continued, "so I took this appearance something familiar." Despite the surreal nature of their conversation, Alexandra's hospitality kicked in. He invited Loredan Dragan, or whoever or whatever she truly was, to stay inside for the night and offered her use of his cabin as long as needed. The chapter closed with Alexandra feeling bewildered by the turn of events but also strangely compelled to help this entity who had shown up at his doorstep like a ghost from the past. He couldn't quite wrap his head around it all, but he was determined not to let curiosity get the better of him. After all, as a ranger, he'd faced many challenges in these woods. Yet, as Loredan settled into the other room and Alexandra returned to his meal with an uneasy sense of uncertainty gnawing at him, one thing became clear: this night would be unlike any other spent alone in the Romanian forest. Chapter 3: An Unlikely Harmony. Weeks turned into months, and the initial shock of Loredan's arrival had long faded away. Instead, a comfortable routine settled between them, a symbiotic relationship that defied all logic yet felt as natural as breathing. Alexandra found himself looking forward to coming home each day after his duties in the forest. He would often return to find the cabin spotless and dinner cooking on the stove. Loredan's way of maintaining her end of their agreement while she awaited rescue or a means back to her own world. She had proven herself resourceful, adapting not only to living among humans but also to the challenges of the Romanian wilderness. Her human guise was impeccable. She moved with grace and purpose through the cabin as if it were her home too, cooking his favorite dishes from memory and even tending to a small garden he'd neglected for far too long. Their conversations, initially stilted around topics like interstellar travel and alien cultures, gradually expanded into shared stories of their respective lives. Alexandra learned about Loredan's world through her eyes, rich with vivid descriptions that painted pictures in his mind. Worlds away from the whispering trees but no less beautiful or complex. In return for her companionship and care of his home, Alexandra made sure she had everything she needed to feel comfortable during her stay. He shared tales of the forest's secrets, its ancient magic whispered through leaves and carried on the wind. Loredan listened with an intensity that betrayed how much these stories meant to her. Stories not just about a place but about connection. Their mutual respect grew into something deeper. A bond forged in solitude yet tempered by their need for each other during this prolonged wait. Alexandra found himself pondering what it would be like if she were truly human, and Loredan seemed content with the arrangement they had, her duties as his caretaker giving her purpose while she awaited news from home. The cabin became a sanctuary of sorts, a place where two beings from entirely different worlds could find common ground. It was an unlikely friendship that transcended their differences. It spoke to the universal need for companionship and understanding in even the most isolated corners of existence. And so as one day blended into another, Alexandra learned that sometimes the most extraordinary relationships are those we least expect, formed not by blood or shared experiences but by a simple act of kindness shown across species. Chapter 4: Revelation and Uncertainty. The transformation was sudden, as if the very air in the cabin had shifted. Alexandra's heart pounded against his chest when he stepped inside to find not Loredan but a creature of striking alien beauty, a being whose true form now lay bare before him. Her exterior was an array of vibrant greens, with skin that shimmered like emerald leaves and eyes that held within them the depth of space. The metamorphosis from human guise back to her natural state left no room for doubt. This was truly what she had been all along, an alien being in disguise. Loredan, Alexandra corrected himself, his voice steady despite the whirlwind of emotions inside him. Whoever you are, I understand now that your true form is not something to fear. She nodded, her eyelids twitching slightly as if sensing his unease. Yes, it has been a necessity to maintain this appearance, she explained softly, her tone carrying an exhaustion he had never heard in human speech before. But my energy reserves are nearly depleted. I must conserve what's left until help arrives. Alexandra took a deep breath and steadied himself with the knowledge that his initial shock was not directed at Loredan herself but rather at the situation they were now faced with. A cosmic puzzle wrapped inside an even stranger reality. I accept you as you are, he said firmly, but I have to admit, this changes things. Her gaze met his steadily. She understood what he meant. His life had been forever altered by her presence. And not just in the physical sense. There was a silent acknowledgement between them that their relationship would never be viewed through human eyes again. As they sat together in silence for some moments, Alexandra couldn't shake off an uneasy feeling gnawing at him. A sensation he tried to brush aside as mere paranoia but which persisted nonetheless. He felt there might be more than just coincidence or chance involved here. The universe seemed to have a way of bringing people or beings together when it wanted something done. Loredan, sensing his unease, reached out with her slender hand and placed it gently on his arm, a gesture that conveyed both empathy and reassurance. "Alexandra," she said after some time had passed, "I know you're scared, but I've been watching over this world for a while now. If there's any danger here, I'll be the first to know." Her words were comforting in their sincerity, yet they did little to quell his growing sense of foreboding. As night fell and stars twinkled beyond the cabin windows like distant signals from other worlds, Alexandra found himself caught between a desire for answers about Loredan's true intentions or that of her people, and an even stronger need to protect this strange companion who had become so much more than just an alien in his woods. Chapter 5: The Truth Unveiled. Alexandra's heart raced as he approached the cabin, his mind a whirlwind of questions and fears. His ranger duties had led him to countless discoveries in these woods, but none so extraordinary or unsettling as this alien presence that now dwelled within. He took a deep breath before stepping inside, steeling himself for what revelations awaited him. Loredan's true form was still as strikingly beautiful as it first appeared, yet Alexandra approached her with caution, the weight of his newfound knowledge bearing down on him like an unyielding force. "Alexandra," she greeted him calmly, but he could sense a hint of tension beneath her composed exterior. "I knew this day would come." He took a seat across from her, trying to keep his voice steady as he confronted the truth. "You're telling me that all these strange behaviors in the animals around here, they were because of you?" "Yes," Loredan admitted without any attempt at evasion. Her eyes held an ancient sorrow, a burden carried by one who was not just a stranger but it seemed now a harbinger of something far more complex and sinister. "The life force I've been taking from the animals has sustained me this long," she continued, her voice barely above a whisper as if sharing secrets of the universe. "But there's little left. My kind is dying out." Alexandra absorbed this information like one who had ventured into uncharted waters without a map or compass, adrift in an ocean of uncertainty. "But why?" he pressed on, his mind racing with implications and consequences. "Why are you here? Why did you come to Earth?" She looked at him with eyes that held the weight of countless sunsets, a plea for understanding from one who had walked among stars long before humanity dared dream of reaching them. "We were explorers," Loredan began, her voice carrying a melancholy that seemed to fill the room, "seeking refuge and hoping to preserve our existence until we could find a way home. But it seems we've found something else here." Alexander's heart sank as he realized what she was truly saying, what this alien presence meant for humanity. "You're not just any explorer," Alexandra said slowly, each word measured with the gravity of his newfound knowledge. "You're an agent of your kind, a life force collector who could potentially threaten human populations." Loredan's gaze met his squarely. There were no words left between them, no need for further explanation or justification. "I never intended to harm you," she said simply, her voice laden with regret and resignation. Alexandra stood up then, the weight of responsibility heavy on his shoulders. He had a duty as a ranger to protect this planet's inhabitants, but he also bore an even greater burden, the need to safeguard humanity from one who might unknowingly imperil their very existence. "I don't know what you are or where you come from," Alexandra said, "but I can't just let you continue taking life force without knowing if that poses a threat." Loredan's eyelids twitched slightly as she processed his words, a silent acknowledgement of the truth in them. She was alone now, among the last of her kind, and perhaps even more vulnerable than he had initially realized. Alexandra left the cabin after their conversation, walking back into the forest with heavy steps and a mind clouded by uncertainty. He knew that this encounter would change him forever. It had revealed an existence beyond human comprehension, a reality where life was not just precious but also potentially expendable in ways humanity could hardly fathom. As he walked through the woods now teeming with strange behaviors, Alexandra couldn't help but wonder if he should alert others about Loredan's presence. Should he risk exposing her to a world that might fear or even hunt down beings like her, or would that be condemning an entire species without giving them a chance? The questions swirled in his mind as the forest seemed to whisper its secrets on the wind, leaving Alexandra with only one certainty: life was complex and multifaceted, capable of revealing truths both wondrous and terrifying, and now he faced the daunting task of deciding what it meant for humanity when those truths were brought home. Chapter 6: The Offer. Alexandra returned to the cabin with a heavy heart, grappling with the weight of Loredan's confession. He had barely settled into his seat when she began speaking again. Alexandra. Her voice was laced with urgency now, a stark contrast to the calm demeanor he first encountered. You must understand that my kind has been on the brink of extinction for far too long. Our survival depends on finding a new source of energy, and your planet is our last hope. He listened intently as she continued, her words painting a picture darker than any forest shadow. We've devised a plan to harness human life force, a means by which we can sustain ourselves indefinitely, Loredan revealed with an unsettling candor. But this requires more than just energy, it demands control. We will need to integrate our technology into your world. Subtly at first, until the point where humanity is unwittingly bound to us. Alexandra's mind raced as he tried to comprehend her sinister plan, the implications of which were nothing short of catastrophic for human civilization. Why me? Alexandra asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Why choose someone like me to be part of this? Loredan's gaze softened, and she leaned forward slightly, a gesture that seemed almost maternal in its intent. Because you are at the crossroads, she said gently but firmly. You have seen what we can do, you know our capabilities, and I believe there is still a chance for you to make a different choice, one of compassion over fear and understanding over betrayal. Her words struck him like a blow from an unseen force, leaving Alexandra caught between the comfort of ignorance and the burden of knowledge. You're asking me to abandon humanity, he said slowly, each word heavy with consequence, to leave behind everything I've ever known for. What the chance at understanding? Yes. Loredan's response was direct yet filled with a sorrow that seemed to echo through time itself. A chance to see beyond the boundaries of your world and learn from beings who have walked among stars far longer than any human has dreamed. Alexandra felt as though he stood on the edge of an abyss, staring into the void where his decision would either forge him a path or condemn humanity to darkness. Oh, and if I refuse? He couldn't keep the question inside anymore. It was the linchpin that held back everything else. Loredan's expression faltered for just a moment, a crack in her otherwise composed demeanor. Then we will proceed without you, she said, each word carrying the weight of inevitability, and humanity might not survive. The air between them seemed to thicken with tension as Alexandra weighed his options, each one fraught with peril and consequence. He had until the ship came, a harbinger for Loredan's sinister plan to take root on Earth, transforming humanity into a mere energy source for her kind. The thought sent shivers down his spine, but so did the idea of betraying those he'd sworn to protect as a ranger. Alexandra knew that time was running out. Every moment counted now more than ever before in his life. He had two choices, two paths laid bare like diverging trails through an ancient forest, one leading toward betrayal and another toward rejection, with no guarantee of safety or salvation either way. The question remained whether he could find the strength to make a choice that would define not just his own fate but also the future of humanity. Chapter 7: The Final Deception. Alexandra's mind was a whirlwind of strategies and counter-strategies, each one more daring than the last. He knew he had to act swiftly. Time was not on his side as Loredan awaited his decision with an eagerness that unsettled him. He couldn't bring himself to betray humanity outright, not when there were still other options available. In a moment of clarity amidst the chaos, Alexandra decided upon a plan so audacious it bordered on recklessness, a desperate gambit wrapped in the guise of goodwill and defiance. The storeroom had been all but forgotten for years, its contents left untouched since the days before the fall of communism when such items were confiscated en masse. Among them lay Romanian explosives, relics from an era long past yet still potent with potential destruction. Alexandra's heart pounded as he carefully selected a box and began to rig it with one of these explosives. His hands trembled, not just from fear but also from the weight of what he was about to do, a deception that could cost him everything or perhaps even more. He wrapped the rigged box in more than plain paper, with the Loredan Dragon poster itself, concealing his treachery beneath an innocent facade. The poster, now a symbol of their twisted offer, served as Trojan horse for this explosive gift. Alexandra's heart felt heavy with guilt and hope as he placed it on Loredan's workspace, ensuring that she would see it before her departure. You have my answer, he said when she entered the room, his voice steady despite the turmoil within him. I cannot accept your offer. Loredan looked at him sharply but then saw the box, a small smile playing on her lips as if expecting this outcome all along. She picked up the gift with a grace that betrayed nothing of its true nature. This is thoughtful, she said, tucking it under her arm without opening it. I will remember your decision when I reach orbit. Alexandra watched silently as Loredan prepared to leave. A transport ship materialized in the clearing like an apparition summoned from another world. The forest seemed to hush itself, a solemn witness to what was about to transpire. As the UFO lifted into the sky, Alexandros' heart clenched with anxiety. He had set his plan in motion and now could only wait for its outcome, a gift of destruction that would either save humanity or seal their fate forever. The forest held its breath as well, knowing somehow that this moment was a turning point, one that would decide not just the future of two species but also the very essence of life on Earth. The ship disappeared into the horizon, leaving behind only silence and the promise of what was to come, a silent countdown to a moment when Alexander's gift would either be opened in innocence or detonate as a testament to his desperate defiance. Epilogue: The crash. In another part of the world, in the heart of America, far from the eyes that would raise alarms or spark curiosity, a small UFO plummeted from the sky. It was Loredan's ship, a vessel now marred and still reeling from its abrupt descent into the woods just kilometers away from a small town called Serenity. The impact sent shockwaves through the forest floor, echoing through the quiet town with such force that it shattered the tranquility of everyday life in Serenity. The townsfolk looked on in stunned silence as plumes of smoke rose above the treetops, a stark reminder of a presence they had never anticipated nor prepared for. This was just the beginning, a harbinger for a chain reaction that would test the limits of humanity's resilience and adaptability, setting into motion events that would forever alter their world.
She said my planet was her last hope, to harness humanity's life force. She offered me a choice, compassion or betrayal. I chose to reject her offer. I gave her the poster as a goodbye. It was the only way.